by Louise Casey into its failings. Let's talk now to the author of that report into abuse within Rotherham. And she is Louise Casey. And a very good afternoon to you, Ms Casey, and thank you very much indeed for joining us. I mean, some people are calling your report damning. It's breathtaking in its criticism of Rotherham Metropolitan Borough Council. Were you shocked by what you discovered?
To be honest, yes, I was shocked by what we found and very, very concerned. We did think that on the back of Professor Jay's profound and important report that they themselves commissioned, that we would find a local authority that was much more open to change, much more open to the need to take action, and we didn't find that. The inspection team, of which I am the lead inspector, found that Rotherham Borough Council is not fit for purpose. It has let the residents of Rotherham down, it's let its children down, and profoundly it continues to let historic and current victims of child sexual exploitation down. I did not anticipate this. It is not something that we have done lightly. We take it incredibly seriously. It's a sad day for public services in the same way it remains a very sad day for victims of child sexual exploitation in Rotherham.
So as you say there, Louise Casey, you went in there, you expected a different response, a different reception, but what you found, it's still there, a culture of turning a blind eye, covering things up.
I think that the issue is that over a very long period of time, Rotherham Borough Council has had a combination of unique factors, in my view. I don't necessarily think it is typical of local government at all. A leadership that couldn't get a grip of the problem of child sexual exploitation, didn't ask enough questions, didn't take enough action. They didn't hold the police to account for lack of action by South Yorkshire Police. Over a 14-year period, we looked at inspections of children's services, of reviews, of reports, and again, services to children simply weren't good enough. And of course there was the issue of child sexual exploitation, both historically and to the current day, where we found that they did not provide a significant service to those victims, and therefore I'm afraid yes, we found Rotherham failing.
And you tackle head-on in your report the issue of heritage, the fact that this abuse was mainly carried out by Asian men. Do you think this was, therefore, a factor from the response by Rotherham Council that it didn't want to get accused of being not politically correct, of racism?
I think that is, that was the case in Rotherham. Unfortunately, I think that it was a very uncomfortable truth. By so doing, though, they bring the Pakistani heritage community into disrepute. They, like me, like all of us, would want all criminals rooted out in any community and dealt with. So by wringing their hands, by being not able to deal with that issue, in many ways, in my view, they made it much worse. And so I think it's important, really, that for all of us, it's important that we do tackle difficult issues. We do look at things, even if they're hard to see and hard to understand. Child sexual exploitation is not a straightforward thing to deal with easily. These are often adolescents and teenagers that are in love with the very men that are actually abusing them, but they cannot consent to their own abuse. It is for us, in authority, in public service, to make sure that we do something about that. And in Rotherham, they did not do a good enough job.
And you say in the report that, as you said there, that it has done a great disservice to the Pakistani heritage community, but also fuelled the far right.
Well, I think that's what the report says. In essence, I think there is a culture here that hasn't actually been able to handle some of the more difficult aspects of this. And as the report, the inspection says, we found that they essentially failed the residents of Rotherham, they failed their children, and they let victims down.
So what happens with a council that is not fit for purpose? I mean, the residents need some kind of council. What would you recommend?
Well, I am hoping that very shortly I have recommended, proposed to the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government, the Right Honourable Eric Pickles, that he will put Rotherham Borough Council into quite significant interventions, which means that the residents will know that the council will get outside external direction and support to help them put their house in order, get some of these things dealt with. I don't think Rotherham Borough Council can do it on their own. I think they need a significant level of help from outside, and that is the proposal I have put to the government today.
OK, Louise Casey, thank you very much indeed. Louise Casey there, who chaired that report into abuse within Rotherham over a long period. And as she said there, she is expecting, we are expecting, well, there is going to be a response from the Communities and Local Government Secretary of State, Eric Pickles, on some of those recommendations, those damning recommendations within that report. We'll have live coverage of Mr. Pickles' statement coming up next.
Because it is clear people will expect.
Welcome to Britain's biggest